you very much for asking me. If you look at the handout, you'll see that first there are a number of names and dates, and then the text in larger type is a sort of outline of what I'd be saying, and the passages in smaller type are things that they might be more interesting for you to read instead of having to listen to me. But they give roughly some of the historical sources for what I've been saying. I won't talk about them in detail, but maybe you can take a look at them afterwards. Section 1, Aristotelian naturalism. Aristotle defends an account of the human good or human well-being as happiness, eudaimonia, consisting in the fulfillment of human nature that's expressed in the various human virtues. So just say three things about this position to begin with. It's teleological insofar as it seeks the basic guide for action in an ultimate end or goal. Secondly, it's eudaimonist insofar as it identifies the ultimate end of happiness, eudaimonia. And thirdly, it's naturalist insofar as it identifies virtue and happiness with a life that fulfills the nature and capacities of rational human nature. Now, we can follow quite a significant thread through the history of ethics by considering how far Aristotle is right or wrong and how far his successors think he's right or wrong. So, for instance, Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century offers the best statement of the Aristotelian approach to moral philosophy, and the best way to examine the Aristotelian approach is to reflect on Aquinas' version of it. And we find some of this reflection in the criticisms, defences, and revisions of the Aristotelian view in later medieval scholastic views on morality and natural law. In the 18th century, Joseph Butler offers a powerful defence of traditional naturalism, and in recent moral philosophy, Philippa Foot's natural goodness is a powerful defence of some naturalist doctrines. So that's just a little sketch that shows the position I'm talking about extends quite longly through the history of philosophy. It's not undisputed, of course. Many critics have attacked the appeal to nature as a misguided approach to ethics. Some of these criticisms, I want to say, rest on misunderstandings. And I want to say that when we clear the misunderstandings out of the way, we can get a clearer notion of what the appeal to nature really implies and how we might try to make up our minds about it. So, section 2, we talk about a misunderstanding of naturalism. So, when you hear someone refer to an appeal to nature, you might think that that's relying on facts about what everyone or almost everyone is like, or more precisely, to tendencies that all or most of us might have independently of environment or upbringing or education. And I suppose that's the conception of nature that lies behind the cliche that you can't change human nature, it's only a pessimistic remark. And that's roughly the conception of nature that's assumed in disputes about nature versus nurture, or heredity versus environment. Well, if that is indeed all that we mean in speaking of human nature, it's easy to see why it's an unreliable basis for ethical claims. So I just mentioned John Stuart Mill's essay on nature, which is partly following out a criticism by Hume. Mill supposes that appeals to nature and to natural law rest on the false assumption that what's generally true of people, apart from education, training, etc., is what they ought to do. Now, if, as Mill supposes, nature refers without distinction to all the natural as opposed to the acquired aspects of human motives and tendencies, it's not a good guide to what's good or to what's right. And so Mill concludes that the advice to follow nature is both irrational and immoral. Now, Mill doesn't ask, as he should, whether facts about natural traits and characteristics of human beings are all the facts about human nature. For a contrasting view, one might look at Butler. So the long quotation under 3 is actually a quotation from Butler. I'm sorry, I forgot to give the source there. His view is that mere facts about natural traits don't support moral claims, but facts about human nature as a system are different from facts about what human beings actually do. So section 3 introduced the idea of someone's nature as a system. To speak of something's nature and what's in accord with its nature is to select among natural tendencies, since they may not all accord with the nature of the whole. Hence, Aristotle connects a thing's nature with its function, its essence, and the kind that it belongs to. The essence of a natural organism is the whole goal-directed system in which different parts, processes, and activities have the functions that maintain the whole. So states and processes that are in accord with something's nature are suitable for the whole system. This holistic and teleological conception of a nature implies that not everything natural accords with a thing's nature. So we have natural tendencies that need to be restrained just because they don't accord with our nature as a whole. So if we fall ill, or we eat and drink too much, or we tire too easily, or we exert ourselves too much at the wrong times, then we may indeed behave in accord with natural tendencies, but we don't act in accord with our nature as a whole. Our nature constitutes a system insofar as the different parts of it are explained functionally. So they work, function as they do because of their role in maintaining the system. So to this extent, a natural system is like a machine, but it differs from a machine insofar as it tends to maintain itself. Now, many questions can be raised about this holistic conception of nature, and I'm not going to try to answer them. I'll try a different line of defense. I'll just point to some simple examples to show that we are familiar with a holistic conception and that we seem to need it to explain some familiar judgments about what's good and about what's right. So section 4, my first example concerns medical judgments. Quite a few years ago, there was a series of adverts on billboards and so on for stout, for Guinness. They said, Guinness is good for you. And they usually had some rather athletic-looking chap flexing his muscles or something like that. And these adverts, I think, were withdrawn after a complaint